Okay, and we are live, but we got to let her breathe just for a moment. We got to wrap Facebook into this conversation because it's going to be a can't miss type of thing. And we are looking good. Welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, as always, my fellow football priest, who you know, who you love, Zack Kelberman. Zack, tonight is going to be a great night because here in just a few moments, we're going to bring on one of our faves, one of our bros, one of the guys, Naj Altaf. But before we get to Naj, first things first, how are you, bro? And your initial thoughts on the defensive lineman signing. We'll get Naj's thoughts on this, of course, but you had the write up for us at milehighhuddle.com.
Yeah, I'm doing well, Chad. Like I was telling Naj before we started, I'm just ready for the draft to be here. This 2-week, 3-week period where nothing happens is pretty brutal for us in this industry. But yeah, the Broncos picked up some more beef for their defensive line. They signed Angelo Blackson. He's a 10-year pro. This is his 10th NFL team, so he's been around the block a few times. He has 27 quarterback hits, 8.5 sacks, 17 tackles for loss, 106 solo tackles. He made 42 career starts. He was with VJ in Arizona, I believe, in 2020, so there's some familiarity there. But once again, like every other player they signed, Chad, with maybe the exception of Brandon Jones, this is not a starter. This is not a Pro Bowler. This is just depth where they need to fill in the roster before the draft.
Well said. A couple just quick hellos on Super Chat, and then we're going to bring on the man, the myth, the legend, Naj Altaf. Sam Bam, thank you for jumping in early with the very generous super, my friend. Saying evening, Chad, Zach, and Scott. Hope all is well. 10 days until the draft. Go Broncos. Yep, we are inching ever closer, my friend. We got the Papa Bear, a.k.a. David McElrath, jumping in also early on Super Chat. Thank you, big dog. Saying good evening to everybody, including Naj. I'm sure he'll appreciate that. Hashtag JJ McCarthy or Knicks, Buckham, MHH for life, Denver Broncos for life. Thank you, my brother. And with that, Zach, let's bring on Naj Altaf, who, get your crap together, dude. Put the phone down just for 5. No, I'm just kidding. Naj in the house. What's going on, bro? How are you?
What's up, brothers? What's up? Good to see you guys. Broncos country, MHH family. Glad to be here. Appreciate you guys.
For those of you who are new, MHH grows by the day. Naj Altaf, he has some roots with MHH. He's an OG. He's been to all of the meet and greets, and this is not a guy who lives down the street from Empower Field at Mile High. This is a guy that makes the pilgrimage from way out east, gets out there. He's a hashtag state of being member of the community. That no doubt about it. But one of our favorites. And so first things first, Naj, I know it's a work day. Don't know how much you've been able to see quite yet, but just as Zach and I were touching on right before we brought you on, Broncos made another veteran addition to the defensive line today in the form of Angelo Blackson. What do you think? I mean, it's kind of a, lower level move, but what's your view on it?
Brother, first of all, I got to say, thank you, Zach, because as much football as I watch, I've never heard of the guy until today. So thanks to you, now I have a bit of a bio on this guy. But I think for me, the biggest thing is we all know, like for years now, if you're a Broncos fan, and we've gotten accustomed to phenomenal defense and a stingy defense, especially because the offense has been so below par, that this last couple of years with what's happened with the defense, we've seen that in the run game in particular, teams just gashing us, pushing us around. And frankly, it's embarrassing when as a fan, I know you guys feel this. I can feel everyone that listens to this podcast. We're watching these games and it's like a 3rd and 3 or a 3rd and 2. And you're like praying that we can make a stop, but it's probably improbable. And we know that it's highly unlikely we're going to get the stop. So if this guy, from a depth standpoint, because that was sorely lacking last year, we just got lucky we didn't get as many injuries last year, but having some more depth, and especially a guy that's got some size and understands the scheme, I think it's, and if anything, it's another camp body that you have on the team that I think will push some of the younger players.
He does have the size, Naj, for sure. He's 6'4", 305, and he doesn't do anything overly well, but I dug into his numbers, and he got a 66.1 run defense grade from Pro Football Focus. So, like you were talking about, the Broncos were ranked either 31st or 32nd against the run last season. This guy, Chad, and Naj will help the Broncos hopefully remedy that.
Yeah, from now on, Naj, when they're like, hey, My son goes, Dad, it's 3rd and 4. Are they getting this first down? I'm going to say, probably improbable. That's what I'm going to say. And we're always going to have this memory because it's a classic, dude. Awesome. Well, let's turn the page here, Naj. I mean, a lot of times, again, for the new listeners, when we have a superstar segment, and make no mistake, Naj is a superstar, we like to go back into talking to him about how they became a Broncos fan. But this is not Naj's first rodeo, nor his first time on the show. So for that, just go back and search on YouTube for Naj's first, and you can get all that information because it's fun. We want to talk about some current events here, Naj, and the draft. The Broncos holding the 12th pick. Could they trade up? Do you want them to trade back? First and foremost, are you on the train of like, how badly do you feel like the Broncos need to come out of this first round with a quarterback?
Bro, here's my take. Normally, I would think that we've got holes that need to be filled and we don't have the draft capital. But Broncos country is at a state, and Zach and I were talking about this, Chad. You get this apathy setting in. And it's been really tough for me. I was saying to Zach that if it weren't for you guys and having a podcast like this, I would be really disengaged from the team right now. Between the debacle of how the season ended, Stidham didn't look the greatest. I mean, we were like, okay, Russ is really, really not looking good. But if we have someone that can throw on point and on target and follow the cadence of the offense, we're going to see an improved product. And we literally went from 16 points to 16 points, and then even fewer against the Raiders. So I think we're at a stage now where we need another glimmer of hope, right? Remember when Locke won those last 4-1 in that kind of end stretch, and Broncos country was humming. I'm sure the podcast was blowing up, and I think that we need that excitement again. And I think you can get the best. You can get the edge guy. There's been a lot of chatter about the edge or get the corner out of Toledo. But I think that's not going to excite and energize the fan base. So I don't think they have a choice. And I think the mismanagement and debacle of this Wilson, like I think we all would have made the trade, no doubt about it. Yeah. But none of us, I think if we were watching practices, you guys, Trickle and all the guys were there. If this is how he was practicing, they shouldn't have ever given him the contract. But then I was wondering if the whole point of the trade, like they had already worked that out, like he had to get a new contract. And that's the only thing I could think of. But all that's behind us. I think now what we need is, and we may miss again. Look, you guys know the statistics, like 20%, even less of these quarterbacks actually are successful. There's entire draft classes. And I'm thinking of the year when Christian Ponder came out and all those guys, that went in the top 15 and none of them are in the league. Right. So, but I am excited, man. I mean, I think that we get someone in there, and look, Sean Payton, he's told everyone, don't talk and don't do this. And then he's the first one to come out and, basically get himself, on get all that national media attention. So he's got to show up now and see what we can do with developing a young quarterback. And I think that's the only way, frankly, guys, that any of us can really tolerate. Nothing against, no disrespect. But if we're at the meet and greet and Stidham or DiNucci, which I actually think DiNucci could probably beat Stidham out.
Yeah.
If that's the quarterback, you have to have hope that that's a build up to something else.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel.
That was a great summer, dude. That the 2019 into 2020. Now, it was a terrible time in the world because we all know what was going on in 2020. But as far as Broncos and like the conversation, Zach, Naj, that was a really fun summer because, as Naj just touched on, there was hope. There was light at the end of the tunnel, and it ended up being unfounded. We could get into all the weeds of that. It's water under the bridge. Who cares why? For now, that's a good point. Give us something to believe in, Zach. That's what my guy's saying here.
And that was the last time we had hope, was Drew Lock in 2019. For a young quarterback, it's 5 years. It's time for that to change, Naj. My question to you, we're on the same page, quarterback above all. Who's your guy? Who are you calling your shot for? Pretend you're the Broncos general manager. Who are you making a move up for, or at least targeting heavily in the draft?
All right, brothers. So I've probably watched 1/100th of the video footage that Trickle and some of the other guys have watched. But,
Right.
and I know this probably isn't going to be the most popular opinion, because I know, talking to like Jeremy Shawn on just chatting on the board, everyone's in on Bo Nix. In fact, that's probably, if Bo Nix is the worst kept secret, because everyone's kind of pointing the arrow in that direction. I like Bo Nix. I think realistically, unless we trade up, I think that it's going to be a Bo Nix or Michael Penix. I actually like Penix more, and I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, but I'll tell you why. Only because, just from the footage that I've watched, the game footage I've watched, Bo Nix kind of reminds me, and it just reminds me more of like an Andy Dalton. Very good early in his career, brought a lot of hope, but never quite got it over the top to get the Bengals. I mean, awesome quarterback, phenomenal career. And I hope I'm wrong. I mean, look, I'm not an expert in any of this, but that's just what, from the footage, game video that I've seen, that was kind of my comparison. And not so much from a size and everything else, but just kind of from the plays that I watched. And a lot of it is the highlight reels in a couple of games. That's the sense I got as far as an NFL comparison.
Yeah.
But for Penix, and this is kind of, I mean, it's reliant also on injuries, but I was looking at him as a Deshaun Watson minus the massage problem issue or whatever. Okay.
Allegedly.
So yeah, allegedly. So I was thinking that this is a guy who can move, but really, because of the injuries, they built an offense around him, which put him in more of a rhythm passing, deep ball. But Sean kind of very raw still in that on-time passing game.
Yeah.
But if we didn't have a Sean Payton, I would actually say it would be harder to mold a quarterback like that. But because we have Sean Payton, and you have those athletic gifts and a cannon for an arm, and I know he's, the southpaw, and that's something unique and interesting, but I don't know, man, it's just very intriguing to me, especially some of the games I saw him. And he had a terrible, obviously at the end there, in the final game, he had a rough one, but that was as you guys know, a phenomenal defense, and they were just kind of outclassed across the board. But yeah, man, that's what I'm thinking right now. If we could somehow get in, obviously, into the top 4 or 3 picks, then you're looking at a much broader potential universe of quarterbacks. But man, I think someone on the website said it might take 2 or 3 first-round picks to do that. And I think that's a bridge too far with where our team is in other positions.
It's interesting you say that, because the new ESPN mock came out with Kuiper and what's the other guy, Zach? I'm brain farting.
McShay.
Thank you. They made their picks, and they rotated. So one guy was the even number, the other guy was the odd number. And I think it was McShay. Anyway, passed on a cue at 12, took Brock Bowers, the tight end from Georgia, then ended up later taking who was it? The South Carolina kid, Spencer Rattler, etc. But in that mock, the reason I'm bringing it for the Broncos, reason I'm bringing it up, Vikings trade up. This is Kuiper. Vikings trade up to 4, give up 2 this year first round picks. Because remember, they picked up an additional with that trade in that trade with Houston. So gave up both of their first rounders this year and next year to get to number 4. So they, in the final analysis, Naj, 3 first round picks they gave up to get, JJ McCarthy, etc. It is a steep price, but I got to tell you, I spent a lot of time this afternoon watching some Bo Nix and watching some Michael Penix film. And I especially spent some time on that Pac-12 championship game where it was Oregon versus Washington. And it was interesting to see, because Washington had the much more, kind of in the same way that you just mentioned, Naj, where Washington was outclassed by just the balanced dominance of Michigan in the championship game. It was similar to that, to where Washington would just across the board was just a more physical, dominant, smothering, attacking team. And so Bo Nix got put in a hole early, and Penix, he played pretty well. You could see that whip he's got, dude. Like, he can just spin it. It is impressive, even though he's a southpaw. But I was impressed, even though he came up short in the end, Bo Nix, he did battle back from that massive hole and got him there. And he's a lot more athletic, man, than people give him credit for. But I feel you. The more, it's like talking to Scott. He's like, people are talking themselves into Bo Nix. But at the same time, you kind of have to get into that headspace because, like you said, Naj, can the Broncos afford to trade this year's, next year's, 2026 first rounders to get to number 4 for a McCarthy? Because it's still a bet, right? You're still betting on McCarthy. It's no guarantee.
Yeah, brother. Oh, sorry, Zach. Go on.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, just look at last year's situation with the quarterbacks with Stroud. You have this debate, and everyone's talking about, and even going back to this idea of a can't miss quarterback. And look at what's happening in Jacksonville right now. Like it's hard, man. Even as smart as these guys are, and how many resources they put into evaluating these quarterbacks. And I think that's the scary thing for us as Broncos fans, because we've just basically, I don't want to say given away, but we've given up 10 players basically for Russ and for Sean Payton. So we're not like, we can't miss. Like, I mean, and Payton, you guys know, has been under significant fire. So he has got to hit. So I think they're going to do all their due diligence, but I think to make a move, it's got to make a lot of sense. And it's got to be, it's got to be a guy they feel supremely confident that this guy is going to be someone that the entire, Broncos country is going to rally behind.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, Naj. I'm just really, I've been anticipating asking this question and trying to get a read on who you want at quarterback. So let's do a little rapid fire. You're a Bo Nix guy, and judging from the impression I'm getting, you wouldn't move up for Bo Nix. You wouldn't trade up for Bo Nix, right?
No, I think that he's going to be there. I think that, I think we stay at 12 unless a really appealing trade comes up. I don't think we're going to see them trading back, because we know the Raiders are going to take a quarterback. So it's just too much of a gamble. And I'll tell you, it's already bad enough that we, still haven't broken the streak to the Raiders. But if they end up getting a quarterback that takes them and makes them an even more competitive team next year, and we're sitting there again, like next year on this podcast, talking about who we're drafting at quarterback again next year, Broncos, talk about apathy. I don't know. You're going to, Chad, you're gonna have to come up with a new word for this, by that point. So That's my take on it. I think they stay there. I think they're going to take one of those two guys. I do. I think all this the Bo Nix thing's interesting though. Usually like you don't want to telegraph this sort of thing. And like, it's like people are going out of their way to almost like push Bo Nix to Denver. Like, and you guys know this, some of this has got to be coming out of, so I almost is like, is it a smoke screen because they don't want, I don't know. So
the other part of my question I had for you. So let's say Bo Nix is there at 12, and I want to know what you would do, not necessarily what you think the Broncos would do. So let's say McCarthy falls a little bit, or Drake May. Would you make that move up and give up those 2 first-round picks or 1 first-round pick, or would you stay put at 12 and take Bo Nix?
Like say to pick 8, he's there at 8.
Yeah, this is a great question, and I've thought a lot about this. And so you guys know what I do. I'm more of a statistical guy. So I think Drake May and JJ McCarthy, talent-wise, tool-wise, but I would argue these other guys, Bo Nix, and I think it's going to come down to the situation they're in and coaching and development and how hungry they are. Okay. Yeah. It would have to be, even to move up to 8. I don't want to give up a Pat Surtain. I don't want to give up. Okay, if we have to give up, man, a 2nd round pick next year, which isn't going to happen. I might be dreaming, but I don't want to give up that first next year, because I think, to your guys' point, we gotta basically take it this year and get through this debacle with the salary. So I'm still thinking we're going to go undefeated and win the Super Bowl, because we're Broncos country. All right.
That's
we
right.
Believe that. Okay. It is a little bit harder to believe that with our quarterback situation, but I'm just hoping Javonte and Samaje and whoever else we get can pound out 2,000 yards this year, right? And give us something, and we have a defense that gets back to that physical play. But I would stay pat. I would make a move. I would do if I'm Sean Payton and George Payton, here's one thing. First of all, I'm hoping that Sean Payton is legitimately listening to George Payton, because he does seem to know guys in the draft and find that whoever their team is of people. And I hope he's got a legit say. And because you never want, like, Peyton might miss some things that the other Peyton might help him with, or vice versa. But that's the way I would go, Zach. I would take, look, if they really like Knicks, I would take him. If the trade is palatable, I would make the move up, especially with a guy like McCarthy. I think it's legit. He played under Harbaugh. Harbaugh, we've known, even going back to his days with Kaepernick, he was a run-first coach. It's a great strategy. Yeah. And probably if he had come to Denver, Russ is probably still our quarterback, frankly, because they would have emphasized that type of offensive play. But I think with Sean Payton, I think they could go either way. I really think, I know I'm probably alone in this, I think they're going to take Penix at 12, which I think the Raiders want Penix. I think they're going to take him. I don't think they're going to risk moving back behind the Raiders. And I think the Vikings are going to move up and probably take, it sounds like they really want McCarthy. Yeah. And so that's what I'm thinking is going to happen.
You got Mike Edel sharing a brain with you. He's like, thank you, Mike, for the super. He goes like, amen, Naj. My worst nightmare is the Raiders coming out of this draft with a better quarterback than us. Yeah, I mean, that combined with the aforementioned streak, the Raiders. I mean, it's one thing, it's hard to look yourself in the eye as a Broncos fan when the Chiefs are up on you 16 straight, right? But that you can at least sleep at night because like they're the best team in the NFL. I mean, maybe you have a hard time getting to sleep, but you're still catching some Z's. The Raiders, I mean, what the heck? But we have had Naj on for a minute here. I got one last question for you, Naj, and really it comes down to this. I forget now who it came from, but it's a pretty widely held, I believe, opinion. Do you agree that the Broncos quarterback situation, as it currently stands, right, 2 guys under contract only, and we know who they are, that it is the worst quarterback situation in the NFL?
Man, another great question. There's some bad quarterback situations in the NFL, but I do think absolutely for the amount of money we're spending on the quarterback room, when you take on the dead cap hit with Russ, I think it is the worst situation. Look, I think Sean Payton's going to have to earn his paycheck. I think he's going to have to put guys in better positions. He's got his team now, man. I mean, he literally has carved this team up and down. He's, if you want to call it, ruffled some feathers. He's done that. And now the fans, we gave him this incredible, look, you won a Super Bowl, 15 years ago or whatever, 20 years ago, which is awesome. And he's got, he's a great orator. He can get on the mic, and that's why he has that TV personality. But let's see some of that offensive game planning in action, getting Mims the ball in space. They clearly want to keep Sutton, which I think is the right move, because guys, my biggest fear for this year is frankly that we don't have those alphas. We already were struggling with them last year because we don't have that take control, like a Vaughn when he was there, even back to the days of Al Wilson. You had these guys. Even, I don't know if you remember Danny Trevathan. There were guys that weren't like, these guys weren't household names, but man, in the huddle, they were alphas and they were dogs, and they really got this team to play at another level. And I think some guys have tried it, like Zach Allen, but we don't have, and now we've lost Josie, we've lost Justin Simmons, and on offense, it seems to me, and I don't know, you guys might think differently, but like Garrett, Bowles, and Cortland, I want them on the team, but it also seems like they were a little bit disenfranchised or disenchanted with how things shook out. And so we got to get them refocused and re-energized. But I think if we do all that, I think, ultimately on paper, Chad, if I was working for that, that whatever, that PFF, then I'd probably say we were the worst. We got DiNucci, bro, and Stidham. Come on. And Stidham, they're still talking about that game against the 49ers. Like, look at what he did in that game. Look at what he did in the 3 games afterwards. And I hope if he's watching the podcast, brother, I'm not, no disrespect. I'm just saying, as a fan, you want to see someone that can actually implement Peyton's offense. And I think they've got a lot of work to do in that position. But I will say this, guys. I think that last thing, that running back room last year really underperformed. And I think Javonte came off a brutal injury. but he had a brutal year. And, just even like some of the plays where like that Patriots game where he kind of tripped up on that 4th and goal play, that should have been a touchdown, walk-in touchdown. Zach, you brought that up, and I watched that play over and over. We probably are still in the playoff hunt at that point if we win that game, but I hope Javonte comes back to full, and we don't know if he will. So that's probably another position we've got to look out for in the, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that, but when I get off, but I think running back is another big time position, which they'll probably, go after later in the draft.
They've definitely spent some time meeting with him this time around. So yeah, we'll get into it, but Naj, love you, dude. Thank you so much. Like, have so much fun chopping it up with you, and honestly just listening to you talk. Like, even if you didn't know what you were talking about, which is not the case, it's fun to just listen to you talk, dude. Like, I'm going, yeah, Naj, yeah, I love it, dude. It's so much fun. I would tell everybody to go follow you on Twitter, but you don't do Twitter, you don't do X. Just look for it in the chat.
I'm not as technologically advanced as you brothers. I will say one more thing to everyone. Got to come to the meet and greet. It's incredible. Let's hope it's on Chiefs weekend, because we're at what, 3 in a row, right, Chad?
Yes,
Zach,
that's
right. Undefeated.
So we're going to go 4-0 next year, and everyone's got to come to that because it is phenomenal. You guys really do it up right. Appreciate you guys. All right, take care, brothers.
Appreciate you, brother. Love you, big dog. Naj Altaf. Everyone's giving you props in the chat. We'll talk
Love you,
to you
brothers.
soon.
Take care. Bye.
All right, brother. There you go. Naj Altaf, the man, the myth, the legend. We love it. We love Naj, and like I said, it's not hyperbole. I'm not just saying it because he was in the room. I love listening to the dude talk, whether, like at the meet and greet, it could be Broncos, Zach, it could be talking about financial stuff or like money market stuff or whatever. It's just a lot of fun having a conversation with that man. He's a stud.
We were talking about just basic life stuff before the pod, and I felt like I drank a 5-hour energy chat or a Red Bull before. So we tried warning you all. I think Todd said great energy, Naj. And again, if you've ever interacted with Naj, it is literally like a shot in the arm in the best way possible. He's full of life. He has great energy. And I find myself agreeing with a lot of points he made, Chad, specifically about Bo Nix. It was something I brought up on last night's show, that the criticism in Broncos country is that Nix is pretty much maxed out as a prospect. And it seems like with his Andy Dalton comparison that Naj agrees.
Naj goes hard. That's all I got to say, man. Everything he does in life, he goes hard, and love that dude. Larry, what's up, bro? No filter in the house. Thank you for the super and for your patience, my friend. He says, hi, guys. Thanks for the pod. A little weird, but I had a dream the other night that we traded for the #1 pick and got Caleb Williams. What do you think? Well, I mean, it would be exciting. It would cost everything you got and then some. You'd be literally going in the hole, mortgage in the future and all that. I'm not sure. Like, if it was Zach, if it was one of these kind of can't miss prospects, and there have been, granted, few and far between over the years, like Elway, Peyton, Luck was considered that. They talked about Trevor Lawrence as being a guy like that, but that's still out, and that's still yet to come out in the wash. But if I was a little bit more certain in that guy, I wouldn't be as hesitant, Zach, to make that trade, knowing it would just cost a ridiculous king's ransom. But he is exciting, but he's also, with Caleb Williams, as dynamic, Zach, and talented as he is, there's a lot of boom bust risk dynamic that you have to weigh and measure, and that does make me nervous. But he's an exciting player, and I think for a guy like Caleb Williams, Zach, if he lands, what's up, Ronk? Good to see you, bro. If Caleb Williams lands in the right place, and I'm not certain, obviously, that Chicago is, I think he could go on to be a Pro Bowl caliber guy in the league. But I do think, Zach, it's going to take the right coach to make that happen and really extract those tools and put it into a consistently productive, prolific product. He's got the potential. He's there. There's a reason why the league is drooling over this cap, but he does concern me a little bit. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we're discussing the plausibility of such a trade, and it's a reason there was a dream for it. To me, it'd be a nightmare, because not only is he not a can't miss prospect, if they weren't moving up from 12, Chad, if they wanted to come up from 5 or 4, it would make it a little more likely, even though Chicago's not moving off that pick. I don't think he's going to be as great as a lot of people think he will be, so we'll see what Chicago does.
We've got some great one-liners from Naj just tonight that are going to stick in my craw for a while in a good way. Like, uh, probably improbable. I love that, dude. And then, of course, we've got Danucci, bro, and Stidham.
Put it on a shirt.
Danny, thank you for the stars. So generous of you throwing down big boy stars on Facebook. Really appreciate you. He says, I'm pretty sure George Payton is going to be gone this coming year if we don't win this year. Maybe, there's a lot of people wondering if he's going to be gone April 29th, which is the Monday following the conclusion of the draft. I don't think that's what the future holds for him, but I mean, everybody's under pressure on this. Nobody's on scholarship in that front office, from Sean to George to any of those guys. There's some pressure there, but yeah, Peyton, he might, Zach, have a little less rope than the guy who reportedly has more power and pull from a decision-making perspective in Denver.
See, I don't think Sean Payton is coaching for his job in 2024, but I do think that, wow, Naj, I do think that George Payton is GMing for his job in 2024, and he's one of the scapegoats that's still around for Sean Payton. Russell Wilson was one, VJ is another, and finally George Payton's at the top. If they don't start winning, the scapegoats will be cast aside and it'll be all down to Sean Payton.
That's what Sean said when they benched Russ, right? If I don't do something now, someone else is going to be up here talking to you. But look at this from the top rope. Naj Altaf, contributing to the conversation, literally on camera, on microphone, doing his thing, and then jumps in and throws down such a generous super chat. We love you, dude. He's part of the family. He knows this. And, like for me, it's just the fact, Zach, that knowing he lives basically, out on the East Coast, and the expense and the time, and he's as a professional with what he does in his career and his life. Time is money, and just the time it spends to make that pilgrimage to the Mile High City, to make it to the meet and greet, is a sacrifice in and of itself. And then to be as supportive in the chat as he is with the supers, and I mean, he's really critical part of what we do here, like a foundational cornerstone member of our community. So Naj, love you, bro. Thank you so much. He's saying, hey, brothers, thanks for having me on. Go Broncos. And, it's so interesting, Zach, and then I want to serve it back to you because I know you got some stuff to say to him. But I love how real he is about, look, if it wasn't for shows like ours, right, like keeping things moving, analyzing every aspect, even when things aren't going good, we're turning over every corner. We're looking for that silver lining. We're keeping the conversation going. I think even more Broncos fans would have succumbed to the apathy. But thankfully, we're all in this together, and guys like Naj and everybody else. I mean, Michaela, David Youngkin in the chat, every single, keeping it rolling. So Naj, love you, big dog.
Yeah, Naj and I were talking before the show started, Chad, and he was telling me and you, as a matter of fact, that how grateful he is, and that we do this and we have this programming for him. Otherwise, he'd be checked out. What I didn't tell him, and what I hope he's hearing now, is that this podcast would not be the same without Naj Altaf. And it applies to a lot of different people that we talk about, but Naj in particular, his infectious energy, his personality, his knowledge of the team, what he brings to any conversation, it is spread throughout the community. So Naj, we are as grateful for you as you are for us. That is the God's honest truth. Thank you.
Boom, bones right there, dude. Boom. If you're right, if we were in person, and I'd be giving you a big hug, and telling you how much I love you. You know this, bro. Pearl saying this is so true, keeps me going. You guys keep us going. Again, when I say that, like we're all in this together, we are, whether it's good times or bad times. Unfortunately, the last few years, it's been more of the bad times as far as the standings are concerned. But Zach, it's never felt like that to me because of the community. We have each other. So I don't ever, I mean, there's been a couple of days, I won't lie, where like things have gotten so bad, like let me think, that Jets game, right, last year, where I got off the Russ train officially, or when they lost all hope really of making the playoffs against the Patriots down the stretch. Like I'm going, oh man, it's going to be real tough to get up there on the mic tonight after this game and put on a brave face and a stiff upper lip and like try and find some silver lining. But we do it, we get on, and as soon as we start talking to you guys, those thoughts are gone, because it's about the community and the chemistry and the conversation and the love and the support. Lawrence, brother, Thank you, my dog. He says, if we do get a rookie, do you guys expect him to be QB1 first day? How long you giving him? I'm just going to keep it within the realm of what I view currently as the most probable, okay, or plausible, and that is the Broncos stand pat and take a quarterback at 12. And if that's what I view as the most plausible, Zach, then it's going to either be Bo Nix or Michael Penix. And in that case, I think if it's Bo Nix, he's a little bit more ready to just step in and win a job and like be the guy. I'm not saying that like he's going to be Patrick Mahomes. I'm saying experience, ability to run pro level system, all that stuff, Sean Payton factor. He has a higher propensity to be that QB1 day one. Penix could as well. I'm not saying he couldn't, but Penix does have a little bit more of a, we'll just call it Zach, raw kind of skill set. There's a lot of talent there, dude. There is a lot of playmaking ability, and that arm he has is something. It's a force to be reckoned with, but he's kind of still a little bit of a rough stone rolling down the mountain, and every little piece of whatever it knocks into, it kind of knocks off that edge. And by the time you get to the bottom of the mountain, it's a smooth stone, but he's still very much that rough stone rolling down the mountain.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the same because it's the only real correct answer here. It depends on the quarterback, not necessarily where they draft him, 12, 13, yada, yada. It depends on the QB. If it's Bo Nix, there's a better chance than not that he could be a day one starter. If it's someone like J.J. McCarthy, who's pretty raw, it's probably going to be Jarrett Stidham. Regardless, though, Chad, I think there'll be a day one competition down the middle, and may the best man win. If that's Stidham or if that's a rookie, the best man will be under center come week one.
George jumping in to say, thanks for your opinion, Naj. Great pod tonight. Broncos for life, MHH for life. Love it. We got Gary up north of the 49th parallel, proven every time that Broncos country is not a geographic location. It's a state of being, baby, saying, what's the priority here between, say, edge, defensive line, and cornerback, Zach? So in that order, we're living in a vacuum where, say, quarterback concerns are not pressing, and you can actually answer this question with a clean conscience. For me, it remains edge because, pardon me, you have a stud, one of the top guys, corners, and a couple of young guys that still have the potential to be something. Defensive line, nothing to really write home about outside of Zach Gallen, and hopefully DJ Jones bounces back, etc. But you've added enough kind of lower level defensive veteran pieces, Zach, on the D line to at least kind of let's see what happens in camp type thing. Whereas with edge, everything about the Broncos edge situation in terms of trying to be optimistic about the future is very much contingent on, do these kind of Robin-esque figures, what's the word? What's that word when they're sidekicks? All right, these Robin-esque sidekicks, do they actually turn a corner and morph into a Batman? Which I don't see it in any of these guys. So for me, it's still edge taking priority there.
It's no brainer that it's edge. It's the second most important position, in my opinion, behind quarterback. And, you talk about how the coverage can help a defensive line or a pass rush. The more impactful factor is a solid pass rush, helping out the secondary, helping out the coverage. Look at the 07 Giants as the perfect example of that. They need someone, the alpha, like Naj was talking about. Baron Browning is a really solid number 2, but they need a number 1 in the mold of a Von Miller or even a Bradley Chubb at this point, Chad. So yes, edge is the number 2 priority.
All right, guys, really quick, we got to take a second to say hello to one of our great podcast partners, and that is, of course, none other than AG1, because the older I get, the more seriously I know I have to take care of my health, my nutrition, and that's where AG1 comes into the picture, because no matter what you do for a living, let's face it, it can become all too convenient to just rely on coffee and energy shots and caffeine for that extra energy, that boost, that focus. But it's not that great for your body, especially for blood pressure. A guy like me getting a little bit older in my 40s, and there's always the dreaded crash. But with AG1, I get the sustained energy, clean energy. So I'm not reaching for another cup of coffee at 3 p.m. And on top of that, I can't stand swallowing multivitamin tablets. And we all know how crucially important it is. Now, I mean, the knowledge on this to take care of your gut health. AG1 checks all 3 of those boxes, and it does so in an impressive, life-altering way if you allow focus, energy, nutrition, improved gut health, all in one delicious smoothie. AG1, Zach, is next level.
Yes, sir. AG1 is the supplement I trust to support my whole body health and help me feel my best. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs when you first subscribe. Go to drinkag1.com/huddle. That's drinkag1.com/huddle. Check it out.
Love AG1. Great partner of the podcast. Danny jumping in again. I can't wait to get back to Broncos football, guys. It's been driving me nuts not watching my team play every Sunday. I know, man. You know, those games, it's one of the things, Zach, that makes football just as compelling as it is, whether it's college or pro. For me, it's all about pro, but is the scarcity of the product itself, right? It's not like the NBA where you get 82 games or however many they do in MLB. You know, you got 17 precious regular season games, and if you blink, they're gone, and you find yourself in the middle of March going, man, I'm missing my team. But hopefully, well, not hopefully, it'll be here before you know it. Time does move quickly, and hopefully this, in just a couple weeks' time, as Naj was talking about earlier tonight, Zach, hopefully the Broncos, pardon me, will have done a little something to help pass the time and kind of microwave that time period by giving us some hope and a player to really focus our projections and our excitement and our passions.
Yeah, because Lord knows we don't get any playoff games. We get 17 regular season games, and that's that, Chad. But, you know, for anyone who thinks it's going slow, the Broncos today started their offseason conditioning program for 2024, and soon enough it'll be the draft, then it'll be OTAs, and then training camp and preseason. It will be here before we know it, and hopefully the Broncos will have a shiny rookie quarterback to build around.
See, look, like real quick, this is from back, you know, this is a 17-minute old comment in the chat from Todd. Just catching Naj for the first time. So that's why I take a second and kind of give a little bit of background on some of our great superstar segments. If it's not their first time, they've been on once, twice, 3, 4, however many times, like in the case, pardon me, of Naj. But my advice, go back, you can search it because it's in the title when we have someone on for a superstar segment. Search their name, Mile High Huddle, Naj Altaf, boom, on YouTube, and go back and watch his first appearance on the show, and you'll learn a lot about how he became the Broncos fan that he is, and just fun stuff. So check it out, Todd, when you get some time. Okay, we're at 42 minutes. We're doing okay on time, but we are definitely on the back nine. So any burning topics, questions, get it in the chat, and we will do our best to get to it before we dip on out of here. I want to grab this here from Leroy. Okay, good to see you on Facebook, my friend. He says, "What a left-handed quarterback." What a left-handed quarterback has to do with his arm. The fact that he's left-handed, what does that have to do with his arm talent? Yes, Penix has an injury history, but I agree with the guest tonight. Bo Nix gives me Andy Dalton vibes. Still not sold on J.J. McCarthy. I do like Drake May and LSU's Jaden Daniels. Zach.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. The dichotomy of opinion in Broncos country about these quarterbacks is staggering, even more so to me than in 2018. And maybe because we all figure the Broncos are definitely drafting a quarterback as opposed to 2018 where it was a possibility and they didn't end up drafting a quarterback. But everyone can like who they like. Penix, it's not just the left-handed thing to me, and it's not just the injury concerns to me that knock him down a peg below Bo Nix. There's some processing stuff. There's some short and middle of the field stuff that I don't think is going to mesh perfectly well with Sean Payton. Does that mean that Sean Payton can't win with Michael Penix? No. Sean Payton won with Russell Wilson and Jarrett Stidham. I just don't think it's the ideal prospect for someone like Sean Payton and what he's looking to do.
I just think, I missed who the comment was earlier, but I think it was from Big E. I'll give Big E some props. Hey, go watch some Drew Brees at Purdue film and then watch some Bo Nix. There's just a lot of similarities. There are also a lot of frustrating aspects of watching Bo Nix in terms of you just want to see a little bit better technique. You want to see him kind of really drive his passes a lot more than he does. I'm hoping, whether he ends up in Denver or not, Zach, I'm hoping some of that velocity stuff can get solved by coaching at the next level that can kind of help emphasize some of that technique so that, hey, you might not have a howitzer hanging off your shoulder there, but you can do things from a technical standpoint to improve the velocity and put some spin on. Gary, again, jumping in. Thank you, bro. He's saying, would you take the risk of drafting Penix knowing the risk as far as I guess maybe the injuries. If Peyton is a QB guru, he can make sure that the short and mid-zone passes are worked on. That is one of the big knocks, Zach, and then I'm going to throw it back to you. You touched on it here just a moment ago about Penix as a prospect is this, I wouldn't quite call it like a fear, but it's a hesitancy, a stubbornness thrown over the field. It's kind of like watching Russ, to be honest with you, where you're like, throw over the middle of the field. He's wide open on a slant or a curl. It's right there. Are you just not seeing it? Like, what's happening? Penix suffers similarly, but again, he's young, so maybe that can be coached into him, Zach.
Yeah, you hit on it pretty well, Chad. It's not something that's innate, targeting the middle of the field and the short area of the field. It can be learned. I mean, just because Russ didn't want to doesn't mean it can't be done. So I'm sure that Michael Penix can learn it. But here's the question, Gary. Do you want to have to start from day one teaching your rookie to target the short and middle of the field? Or do you want a quarterback from day one out of the box that can do that? And that's his expertise, like Bo Nix in that case. Again, like the comment I just made, can Sean Payton win with Michael Penix? I'm absolutely sure he could. I don't know about playoffs or a Super Bowl, but he can get some wins in there with Michael Penix. But is Michael Penix the best fit for Sean Payton? That's debatable, and I tend to think no.
I agree. I don't think he is the best fit, and especially if we're talking about the plausible options of pick 12, who's likely, most likely anyway, to be there. Fit perspective, it's Nix. Highest upside, yeah, you got to say that it's Penix. So then you might go, well, then what are we talking about here? If Penix has the highest upside, let's go. Well, Spencer Rattler has a pretty high upside too, but that floor, man, you want to get some vertigo. That's how you get it. The Duchess, Michaela, thank you so much. Another just core member of our community, near and dear to our heart. She was just on the show. Love you, Michaela. She's saying, I can listen to Naj talk all day. He has that effect. I know. And I mean, I'm not just like blowing smoke up his skirt when I say I could just listen to him talk just like you, Michaela. I'm like, Naj, let's get you on a podcast, more than just a guest spot or who knows, maybe in the not too distant future, we can work something like that out. Naj knows what's up on that front, but yeah, Naj, shot alive, baby.
Well, let me repeat my popular 3 words, Michaela. Thank you, Michaela, as always, for your generosity. And I was listening to Naj speak as you did, and I'm thinking to myself, holy I could be out of a job soon. I mean, what do I need to be on here for if Naj is bringing that energy and bringing that knowledge and insight? And I definitely appreciate listening to him. And yeah, I hope he rubbed off on everyone like he did you, Michaela. He's truly a tremendous guy.
Like LB Smith. Yo, LB, no offense. I'm not trying to say anything because we number everybody is numbered in our hearts in the chat. Like, newer name I don't recognize all that well, but even LB jumping in going, yo, that Naj guy, pretty cool. Yes, he is. And so is Michaela, by the way. Okay, we're about out of time here. The Ronk, love you, big dog. The Lawrence Rivera jumping to say, I wonder if we will have another year of the Bolin curse. In other words, missing the playoffs. The odds point in that direction. Even if they come out of this with a round 1 Q, Zach, the odds point to it being perhaps one last year of being on the outside looking in. But these are the type of things that you just can't always project with accuracy when you're talking about the NFL period, but especially young quarterbacks. I mean, nobody this time last year, and even in the immediate aftermath of the draft, for example, Zach was talking about the Texans being a threat and all that stuff. It's the parity of the league. Quarterbacks definitely level the playing field if you get the right guy. So there is that hope. Ronk, love you, big dog. And yes, he's saying, great show tonight, Chad and Zach with Naj on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Go Broncos.
And Taylor Christensen, I believe, is closing us off tonight. $1.99 super. Thank you so much, Taylor. Hey, guys, we can't move back because Raiders go Broncos. And Taylor, a decent point. I'm glad you brought it up because when Naj was talking about liking Michael Penix, I read something earlier. I don't know if it's a smokescreen. It sounds like it and feels like it, Chad, that the Raiders might take Penix at 13. And they really want a quarterback. Supposedly, they really like Jaden Daniels. I don't know if they can move up that high to get him. And the scuttlebutt is they want Penix at 13. So that's why I've been saying for a long time, it's not just the teams in front of you that you have to worry about. It's the team directly behind you, who also, by the way, happens to be in your division, and you haven't beaten them in 6 or 7 years, or whatever it is, 3-4 years.
I love this. It's like, hey, when my wife's like, "Hey, you seem like you stubbed your toe getting out of bed or something. You're like in a bad mood. Why is that, Chad?" I go, "Because Raiders." And then I just turn and walk off, and then she gets it. She's like, "Oh yeah, definitely because Raiders."
FTR, baby.
Yeah, that's right. Get it. Thanks, guys. Much love to everybody. Of course, Naj, we're not out of here, but we got a few messages for you before we dip.
Tremendous installment as always, but especially tonight because of Naj of the MHH podcast. If you haven't done so yet, please follow us on Twitter at the MHH pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every podcast, check out mhhmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't yet, please drop us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. You can find us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
And look at this. As a parting message and gift, we've got the Lady D. I mean, so many just key members of our community jumping in tonight, but that's kind of what happens when you have a firebrand like Naj. It's like a rallying, it's like a lightning rod, so to speak. Deanna, thank you so much. We love you. We're really hopeful that this next meet and greet, you're able to make it. We don't have the date quite yet. We're waiting for the actual schedule to be unveiled, which will be here sooner than later, but kind of circle. It's a little bit of a bigger circle right now, granted, but circle, the second half of September, somewhere in there as a possible trip to Denver. But she says, finally able to get on Stupid Alaska Broadcasting. Love Naj on the podcast. Great job, Priest. Go Broncos. MHH for life. Yeah. Trust Naj will be there at the meet and greet. That you can trust. The sun will come up tomorrow. The sky is blue. Naj will be at the meet and greet. These are the absolutes in life. Death, taxes, all these things. Naj is right there as well. But we hope to see you as well, Lady D. Thank you so much for helping us end the show on just a great show on an even higher note.
Yeah, perfectly said. Thank you so much, Deanna. And, the same comment I made to Naj applies to each and every one of you. And I'm pretty sure I've made it at some point over the course of 4 or 5 years. This podcast would not be possible without your support, Deanna, Naj, Michaela, each and every one of you. Thank you all from the bottom of both our hearts.
Additional shouts and additional Mile High salute to the great Super Chat supporters tonight and superstars. Sam Bam starting us off. The Papa Bear, David McElrath. We got Larry No Filter. We got the Ronk. We got Lawrence Rivera. We got Danny Powers just throwing down on Facebook. We got Mike Edel, George Fox, Gary. We've got blah, blah, that is up in Canada. The Duchess, pardon me. We got Taylor Christensen, the Lady D, and last but obviously and most certainly not least, Naj Altaf. Much love and respect. Thank you guys. Love you. Can't wait to talk to you again. Zach and I were off until Thursday night, but we look forward to seeing you then. Plenty of content coming your way. We're going to keep this snowball rolling until the draft here at MHH. So keep it subbed. Hit those notification icons. Don't forget to like the video, as Zach said. That's a small thing that you can do right now that helps us out in a big, bad way. So love you guys. Thank you.
Have a great start to your week. We will see you Thursday night. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.